Hi, I'm Sam from Interface. We're Bitrix24 Gold partners. Thank you very much for joining today. Okay, so first of all, we'll just go through some introductions. So I'm Sam Connor, Sales Manager here at Interface. We're based in the UK, the US, and Hong Kong. We offer a full range of services to assist you with Bitrix24. So starting off with pre-sale support, so we can help to answer your questions and really help you to make if Bitrix24 can be a good fit for what you're trying to achieve. And if it's a good fit, we can then provide our hosting and implementation services so we can help to set up the system exactly how you need it to work. We can then also provide training and ongoing support to assist you with the Bitrix24 system. Okay, so let me just explain a little more about what Bitrix24 actually is. So Bitrix24 is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 40 different tools that you can use to help you to manage your business. And there are over 15 million businesses around the world that use the Bitrix system. And it's available in two different editions. So we have the Bitrix24 Cloud and we have the Bitrix24 self-hosted solution. And then pricing, it starts from $49 per month on a cloud system on the basic cloud there, or for $3,590 for the self-hosted system for the first 12 months. And then in year two and ongoing annually, you'll pay a 50% renewal fee to continue to access the system. Okay, so first of all, let's just understand a little more about what business processes are, because that's what we're focusing on in today's webinar. So business processes allow you to execute and monitor workflows on objects such as documents, CRM items, leads and deals, tasks, but also HR items such as leave requests and expenses. And Bitrix includes a very advanced editor tool with simple action blocks from which processes they can then be constructed. And there are a variety of business processes that are available. So if I come over to our Bitrix system, so what we can see here, there are, first of all, sequential business processes. So a sequential business process can perform a series of consecutive actions on an item. So from a predefined start point, so like we can see here, to a predefined endpoint. So here, this is a leave request, which is going through an approval process. So we go from the start where it's initiated through to the end where it's completed. That is a sequential business process. We then also have, if we come into the drive area of Bitrix, which is one of the most commonly used areas for storing documents within the system, maybe a different type of approval process here, but you can also run a state-driven business process. So this is very different in the sense it does not have a start or an endpoint. It has a series of statuses. So in this type of business process, essentially on this document, we have access permissions on different statuses, and you can then specify events that will then trigger the execution of child processes. We then have automations, so very commonly found within the CRM area of Bitrix. So if we come into our lead database here, you can see we have different types of automated actions that are going to take place on different stages of the lead workflow. And then we also have triggers. So a trigger can automatically update the stage that that lead record is at. And those automations you can run inside deals, inside smart process automations as well. So they're in a variety of areas. And then we also have robotic process automation. So this is in-housed outside the CRM, but we can then create different workflows with stages and automated actions at each stage. So in this example here, we have an employee onboarding. So we can see the progression of an employee through the process. and we have a historic page here with all of the different data points and essentially an audit log of every element of work that has been completed on this specific workflow. So we can start to see that business processes really are encompassed into every area of the Bitrix24 system. Okay, and we've kind of briefly seen there where we can run business processes, but it is very important to understand that the business processes are run across the entire Bitrix24 system. So, for example, on the cloud edition of Bitrix, they're running the HR and admin areas, in the CRM, on documents, lists, and even in tasks. And with the self-hosted, it's possible to run those processes in custom areas, such as on user profiles. So if we just take a look, actually, if we come back into our Bitrix, let's just take a look at the different areas we can run these processes. So for example, in the feed section on the home page, this is a key area where we've got lots of different workflows that are set up. So if I wanted to trigger a holiday request, I can start to fill in that form directly through the feed page here. As we've seen inside the CRM system, we can run those automations on stages in leads and deals. Also possible to run business processes inside the entities as well. So you've got your workflow area here, so we can manually trigger a workflow if we didn't want to progress based on stages. Another feature here is scripts. So scripts is very similar. Okay, so we've got an automation engine in the background here, so we can create automated actions, just like we can do in stages on our leads or on our deals, but you're creating the automation workflow here. And then I can select the specific data points that I'm wanting to run that specific automated workflow on. So I can then send that out and run that on that specific selected pieces of data. Okay, if we come into tasks and projects, then if we come into our task area here, we have the ability on our projects to run our Bitrix24 automations. So if I wanted to, if I just come back into our project here, we can see here we've got automations on the Kanban stages of the project. So customizable to your process, but I could create automated actions. So for example, when we get to this check stage, if the task is overdue, it's going to automatically move to this stage. And then we're automatically changing who is responsible for that specific task because it's now become overdue. So it needs to be moved to the check stage. And when we get to the management review area, we're automatically creating a task for the approval of that process. So it's a very automated process you can set up, not just within the CRM, but we can do this within the task and project management module as well. Okay, and as we saw earlier on in the drive area, we can turn on business processes. You just need to make sure inside the drive area that you have this button ticked to activate business processes. Then those processes can be run through the system, and then we can run those processes on documents. So if we click into here where I've got a process here, I can then run a specific process on that document that we have uploaded. So it's one thing what I really want to get across in today's webinar is that business processes are not limited to a specific module or area of the system. They can be encompassed in a variety of areas, and we can configure the actual triggering of that process. So if it's run on an automation on a stage, that's going to be automated. Or we could select a script, which is going to be a manual process. So we're going to look at how things are triggered in more detail shortly, but it's something to bear in mind. If you're thinking about what types of workflows you might want to create within Bitrix, it's important to understand how that workflow is going to be triggered inside the system. Okay, so we've seen the types of business processes, and we've seen where those business processes can be run. So what's really important at this point now is seeing how we can create a business process inside the system. So we'll look first of all at how we can use the business process designer tool to create a sequential business process, and then we'll take a look at how they can be set up running as an automated action block inside the CRM. Okay, so let's go into our CRM. So if I want to create a sequential business process here, I'm just going to come into our settings area, and let's go into the deals. This is where we could set up an action block. But what we'll do first of all, we're going to set up a sequential business process. So we come into the business process area, and here we can see the different entities that we can create the process. Now we want to create this in the deal entity. So let's select the deal. And we're going to run this process looking at when the deals are changing stage. So we'll call this deal stage change. And we can then select when this is run. So when the deal's added, when it's changed. So we want to look at when this is changed inside the system. And then this opens up our business process design system. So on the right-hand side here, we can see all of the action blocks that are available for our team to select from. So I can add into here conditions. And what we'll do in this example is we'll add 3. So we're going to look at 3 different stages of the deal. So what I can do, you can see here, you can see all of the different action blocks. There's a variety of action blocks we can set up. And what we'll select first of all is I want to look at the stages of the field. Okay, so let's now, of the deal. So I can select the stage here, and let's say it's going to be equal to here. Now we'll have the deal pipelines. And then what we can do is you can see here the different pipelines with the stages that are set up. So let's first of all look at the build proposal stage. I'm just going to type that into here. And then what we can do is just configure the same setting, but just change the field of stage that we're going to be looking at. So I can come into here, and now we'll put it into the awaiting decision. So it is very important to get training on how to use this tool as a bare minimum, because it is a very advanced workflow design tool. And that's what we can do here at Interface. We can provide training, but also provide assistance to actually set up your workflows if you would like our assistance. So that's now been set up. And now what we can do, so it's looking at that stage once the deal is hitting that specific stage. So let's say when we're building the proposal, I want to do a credit check on the customer. And when we're at the waiting decision, I'm going to wait 7 days. And then what we'll do is we're going to do automate the creation of a phone call into the system. So you can start to see how we're fleshing out the workflow. So at each of those stages, it's automating the actions here that are going to be taking place. And then when we get to the one deal, we're going to notify the sales manager. And what we can then do is send a thank you email to the customer. And that's all populated inside the system here. This is where we're populating the emails. And that's the entire workflow set up using the business process design system. So it uses drag and drop technology to construct these workflows. And as I mentioned, it's very important to understand this is a sequential business process, because we have a predefined start point and then we have a predefined end point. And that can then be saved and then run through the system. But let's say if you wanted to run a different type of process. So if I wanted to run an automated action here, you've also got the automation area of the CRM system. So we can click on create here, If I wanted to create a specific automation that runs when a deal is created and entered into the first stage of the pipeline, then inside here, I can select what stage I want to run the automation on. Let's create that task. And then we can give the task a title and then put a description into here. Okay, and then we can assign this to a specific person. I'm going to put this to the responsible person on the deal because that is the most logical methodology for assigning that. And then we can put a deadline in place. So I'm going to say here within 24 hours of the deal being at that stage, that task needs to have been completed. So it really adds accountability to the responsible person to ensure that task is completed in that timely manner. And you can see here we've got a variety of different types of automated actions that are set up in the system. A really nice workflow we set up for a lot of companies is when the deal hits the one stage. Quite often, when that deal is won, there's a specific project, then the customer onboarding project, where all of the work involved for the customer that they purchased needs to be completed, especially if it's, say, professional services industry type. So here what we can do is we're going to automate the creation of a project, and based on the type of project that the deal has been labeled as, there are specific tasks here that are going to be created and assigned to the correct person within the organization. So it really ensures the streamlined process from sale completion to project creation, assigning the correct work at the correct stage, and really improving the customer experience because it reduces the time between the sale completion to the actual project being started. Okay, so that takes us to look there at how processes can be created inside the Bitrix system. And we have referenced this quite a lot already, but it's very important to understand the triggering of business processes. So how do we trigger them? Well, first of all, on both the cloud and the self-hosted, we could trigger a process on creation. So let's say when a deal is created, the process could be run. When there's an update, so that update may be, let's say, updating a field inside a contacts record or progressing the deal to another stage. An update on that entity could then trigger that process. We can run processes manually, as we saw when we were in the stream creating a holiday request. That's a manual operation there. And that could also be done through the CRM on documents and tasks. There is also the option to use a webhook as well to create and trigger a process. Now, if you're wanting more advanced triggering and a simply more advanced version of Bitrix, then you would want to look at the self-hosted version of Bitrix because you can then create more advanced processes and external triggers. So, for example, if we come back into the on-premise system here, this is an on-premise version of Bitrix. What you can do within an on-premise is you can create mailbox rules. And it's a very popular feature that a lot of our customers like to use. So within the mailbox here, you've got this rules section, and then we could create a rule directly on that mailbox. So for example, as soon as an email comes into this specific mailbox, we're going to create a help desk ticket inside the help desk module. So you can start to see how using a self-hosted version of Bitrix, you have a lot more advanced triggering and processes that can be incorporated into the operations of the business. Okay, so let's take a look now at a few live examples of processes that we can run inside the system here. So let's just come back into our project area. Let's start off with a script, actually. So we've mentioned about how you can create scripts inside the system here. So let's say if I actually am working on all of these leads here, but there's 3 specific leads I'd like to run a script on. So I can select that data points. If you've got a large amount of data within here, you could use the filtering tool first to filter and drill down into the data, so then select. And then I'm going to create this process here to run. So you can see now the script is started, and then it will tell you once that's been finished. Okay, so let's go into that page. And now you can see that call client task has been created using that script. It's assigned it with a deadline in place. So that's now run that process on all of that specific segment of data that we have created inside the system. Okay, so that's a look at their process, and let's take a look now at how you could create a leave request form inside Bitrix. So what we can now do is let's open up a form for holiday leave. So we can see this has the form now, and this form can be completely customized, by the way, to your specific holiday management requirements. So you can decide what fields are mandatory, what fields are optional, and really customize what data you require at each step of the workflow. So let's put this into here. I'm going to put the reason for the request, and then I can start that process in the system. And that will then create an approval process. So the manager then has to either approve or reject that holiday request inside the system. If it is approved, then what will happen is it's going to go into the employee's absence chart area. So within here, we have our absence chart, and you can then see those requests. So we can see what's been approved inside the system here. And it's not just holiday requests, it could be different types of absences that then get managed through the system here. And then another type of process then. So say this is using the robotic process automation tool. We can then onboard an employee into the system. So we can fill in the form, first of all, that needs to be completed. And then from there, we can start to automate that. So it's going to automatically now move to the HR department, and that's going to assign the work to that relevant employee within that area of the business. And we're now starting to track the history of that onboarding process. So you can see here, it's created the tasks for the HR representative to complete, and we can see that history. So as now the onboarding progresses through those departments, all of the history will update inside the system, and we can add notes into here and even tag our colleagues and keep everyone updated on that progression. So you have a full audit log here on that record in the system. So that's just one example of an RPA. We can come into here. There's a lot of different types of RPAs that you could set up, from business trip, expenses, asset management, recruitment as well. So it really allows you to be very flexible in how the system is designed for your specific processes that can be automated using the tools available within Bitrix24. And then just to really briefly mention the differences between the cloud and the self-hosted. So we've already discussed a few of these. So most of the tools are available in both the cloud and the self-hosted solutions. You would need at least a professional cloud version of Bitrix to be using the business process design tool. So if you are wanting to run business processes on the cloud, you would need at least that professional tier. The self-hosted, any tier will be fine. I think really the main difference and the benefit of a self-hosted is that option to run processes on extra modules such as tasks or user profiles, and the ability to trigger any process from, say, an external email box or using an API call. You have that advanced functionality with the self-hosted. Okay, so in summary today, we've seen how business processes can be run on a variety of entities within Bitrix. So ranging from documents, CRM items, HR features and lists. You've got a simple drag and drop workflow creator tool to create those processes. And we've seen how processes can be triggered in different ways. So either manually, automatically, via email, or even API call with our self-hosted version using the mailbox rules. Okay, so here are a selection of our up and coming webinars. So we are here every other Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So you can register at interface.com/webinars. And I look forward to seeing you all in the near future. The recording of this will also be on our YouTube channel. So youtube.com/interface. You'll be able to access all of our content on our channel there. Okay, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you all in the near future. Bye for now.